Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here. I'm sorry.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Partly here. Thank you. Our invocation this morning will be delivered by Reverend Dr. Linda Veach from the Tarrant Churches Together. Thank you very much for coming out today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Always a pleasure.
And now let us join our hearts and minds in prayer. Let us pray. Gracious, loving, holy God, we give you thanks for this day and for all the gifts that you have given us to use in your service today. We give you thanks for the people of this community and for these commissioners, for all who work with them, for the good of the people of this county. And we pray your guidance, your direction, your inspiration, your protection, and most of all, your will as we continue this work together, as we join our gifts, as we join our minds, and as most of all, we serve you. Lord Jesus, we ask it in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Mr. Manion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have one announcement as it relates to this agenda and then a discussion about next week's court date. As it relates to this week's agenda, we're going to ask that under the Administrator Section Item 7A1, that we hold that. Just to comment on that once again, Mr. Renoir requested that we put the outside burn ban on, and it started raining. Not only this time, we not only got rain, but we got a 20-degree drop in temperature. Yeah, so we'll remember him whenever it comes to
Let's keep it on the agenda.
So we're going to hold that until a future date. Also, members of the court, there's been some discussion about next week's court meeting, that rather than starting it at 10 o'clock, that we started at 9 o'clock. If that's the desire of the court, then we can obviously make that work. We do have a public hearing at 10 o'clock, and we will still, if we start court at 9 o'clock, and when we hit 10 o'clock, we'll stop wherever we are on the agenda and go directly to that public hearing.
Okay, and that's, again, we've got some activities going on in Arlington, and so we want to keep the public hearing because that's, we've already put that word out, and we want to do that at 10, and then hopefully be able to get out and get away in time.
So we'll start court at 9 o'clock next week, okay? Great.
TK, I think there was another meeting on the 30th also that there was a groundbreaking, a TxDOT groundbreaking.
Oh, we're not holding court that day.
We are not going to hold court on 30th?
Right.
Well, we need to talk about that. We'll get back with you this afternoon on that, but if not, we'll have to rearrange that. We're working with budget to see if that's a court meeting that we're going to need to have. It's not related to any public hearings, it's just we're finalizing some of the recommendations on budget. So we can move that up some, then we had anticipated not having that meeting on the 30th.
Well, there is a chance that I'm going to be in Austin now on the 30th, so.
Well, then we'll work around this and let us give you an announcement at the end of close today.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Brooks and Commissioner Wynn both have announcements, I think.
Okay, we'll start with one. Always a good place to start. Healthy Lives Matter is a health initiative of Precinct 1. It started as a prostate cancer and screening event. That was the first initiative under Healthy Lives Matter. Our second initiative will begin this Saturday, and it is an Alzheimer's education event. It's targeted primarily towards caregivers, people who are taking care of loved ones who are afflicted with Alzheimer's and other states of dementia. It is aimed towards directing those persons towards resources available in the community so that they can more effectively care for both their loved ones and for themselves. The event will be held this coming Saturday, August the 20th, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Trinity River campus of Tarrant County College. All are invited. It is absolutely free, and we've got experts from most every discipline which touches the care of folks with Alzheimer's and dementia, and you'll learn a lot. So come out and join our Healthy Lives Matter Alzheimer's education event.
And in commemoration of the 15th anniversary of 9/11, we want to honor our first responders by conducting a cookie drive. Essentially, if you are interested in contributing, you can drop off your pre-packaged cookies, and you can drop them off at the Mansfield sub-courthouse, the Arlington sub-courthouse, and I do have a box out here in my office, right outside. So if you would like to contribute healthier snacks other than cookies or monetary donations or gift cards, those items are welcome as well. You can do so until September 6th, and then our office staff, we will work with community leaders in Precinct 2 to distribute those cookies, snacks, gift cards, and so forth to the responders in our area as a token of appreciation for their sacrifices and service to our community. Thank you for your help with that.
And then I want to announce, I hope if you look at the screens, you will see my newest, that is Henry and his big sister Cosette watching Bubble Guppies. Cosette's teaching him well, and then over on the left-hand side is the Horde minus the 16-year-old who always has other things to be doing.
Of course.
But Henry arrived on Friday about 1:30, and they're now at home, and everybody's doing fine. So we're excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
That's number what, 7?
It's the 7th. As I say, I've got 5 from scratch and 2 bonus. And there again, it was they went home Saturday, and they're actually living with us right now because they're trying to get the house that they purchased ready to move into. So everybody was there. And Henry's got a pretty good set of lungs on himself, so he didn't have any problems overpowering the other 6 put together. So
Let everybody know he's hungry, huh?
Congratulations.
yeah, we're very excited. It's fun.
Are you changing diapers the past few days?
I haven't changed one yet. I usually try to hold out and only do that when they think when I'm by myself and they don't really. I can tell them I never had to change a diaper, but I have changed a few, and he's filled a few already. So it's an interesting time. It kind of keeps everybody young.
TMI.
I know. But that's an important thing for a newborn. All right, moving right along. We have before you the minutes of our special call meeting of August the 8th and our regular meeting of August the 9th.
Move approval of both.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Fickus. Motion passes unanimously.
The two without announcements today.
Correct. The consent agenda is now before you.
Move for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Tidwell.
We have one item we're asking the court to take action on this morning. That's receive and file the auditor's report for the Domestic Relations Office. The response is attached. There is a notation in there that there was a couple of things that need to be corrected. The matter of the fees that have been charged in an incorrect amount. Again, we will continue to work with the DRO office to work with the district attorney's office to determine what, if any, action should come of that.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion
Thank you.
passes unanimously. Yes, sir.
I'm going to do budget.
For the backless person?
I'd answer, but that would be a HIPAA violation.
Good idea.
Members of the court, a week ago to item C1, we're requesting that the court approve the payment of the claim as listed in your court communication.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Phillips, the other Mr. Phillips.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, on item number 1, we're requesting that the court approve an order calling the local option election on November 8th, 2016 for Justice of the Peace Precinct Number 1 to determine for and against the following issue: the legal sale of alcoholic beverages for off-premise consumption only.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
On item number 2, we're requesting the court approve an order including the calling the general election to be conducted on November 8th, 2016, and 2, establishing 41 permanent branch early voting sites and 8 temporary early voting sites for the November 8th, 2016 general election. You'll notice attached the requested early voting sites. I do want to point out one change. In the past, we voted at Summer Glen Library, and it's a very tiny room, and we periodically end up with lines out the door. We have decided to move that to Longhorn Activity Center, where we can double the amount of equipment. It's about 4 minutes away from the prior location. And also, if we do develop a line there, they can contain it inside the building, which we can't do at Summer Glen.
Mr. Phillips, what did we do with the early voting site in the Worth Heights neighborhood?
We, at this point, have left it at Worth Heights. We've been in contact for some time with Leon in your office, and we've never received a successful resolution to it. I do want to point out that one of the changes that Worth Heights made, they have had a day school in there, and they moved that day school out. They totally remodeled the room for us, and they gave us our own entrance into that room. So they've really put some improvements into that location. But there was, I know my
I don't
staff.
think the issue was the adequacy of the facility, it was the location of the facility. It's on the wrong side of the freeway, according to that neighborhood.
We've been working with Leon for several weeks, trying to come to a successful resolution and never received a response.
Do I have a
So you're
motion?
throwing Leon under the bus.
Well, Commissioner, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. We were trying to get an answer to what you wanted, and we've been unsuccessful in receiving that answer.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any more discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 4-1. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecham? You gonna come up, or did I forget our HR? Well, just come on up
Move to
here.
receive and file personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to receive and file personnel agenda. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. We'll get you highlighted next time. Mr. Beecham? Is it toilet paper time again?
Yes, sir. You sure your grandson wasn't watching the LSU Arkansas replay? It might be good to share a disappointment with him at an early age.
Yeah, well, wouldn't have been a disappointment if he'd have been watching a game that I had picked for him.
We have 8 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2016-133. This is our annual contract for repair and PM of commercial kitchen equipment. Recommendation would be toward a per unit price, hourly rate, and markup on parts, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors meeting specifications as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item is a bid award recommendation for RFQ 2016-139. This is an RFQ for juvenile residential services. Recommendation would be to award to the 20 vendors who shown in your court communique meeting all specifications. If approved, we're also seeking contract approval from the court.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3 is another bid award recommendation for bid 2016-156. This is our annual contract for Panasonic Digital Business Systems and Key Voice Equipment and Services. Recommendation would be to award on a per enterprise basis according to Great Communications.
Move for approval.
Second. A motion, a second, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4 is another bid award recommendation for RFQ 2016-160. RFQ for mammography services for the Public Health Department, awarding per the contract terms to Comprehensive Breast Care Center of Texas and Texas Health Harris Methodist Hospital Fort Worth. They both meet all specifications.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 5, again, is a bid award recommendation for bid 2016-162. This is our annual contract for aggregate road surface treatment for use in all precincts. Recommendation would be to award a per unit price discount from list price, awarding to the 3 primary vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 6, another bid award recommendation for RFP 2016-163. It's an RFP for on-site language interpretation services for the Public Health Department, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 7, another bid award recommendation for bid 2016-178, annual contract for toilet paper, awarding on a per enterprise basis, selected as our primary vendor, D2 Distributors, our secondary vendor, Country Made Services.
How do we know that's good toilet paper?
Well, here we go. Let us set up.
Thought you would never ask.
Yeah, that threw you a softball there.
That is not the toilet paper that's in my office.
You may keep it.
First off, it's wider.
Let the toilet paper inspectors take a look at it.
How come I don't have any? You not get one?
No, I didn't.
Mine's not embossed tissue. Why are they different? Well, you passed them out. Tell me why I got a different one than everybody else got.
That's Arkansas standard.
You're special.
There you are.
Just our way of giving back to the court. Thank you again. Our last item,
We have a motion, but and we probably have a second. So we don't have a
Second.
motion or a second.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Our last item is an item in regards to bid 2016-154. This is annual contract for short-term and long-term rental of cars, trucks, and vans. We're recommending rejection of all proposals and seeking permission to reissue with revised specifications. Both the vendors did not bid on all items, and this one's kind of on us. We need to do a better job with specifications next time.
Move for approval. Of
Second.
rejecting all proposals.
We have a motion to reject all bids, and it's been seconded. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Skinner.
Morning.
Good morning.
We are requesting the court's approval of an advance funding agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation related to improvements to State Highway 114 and State Highway 170.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Are there any appointments? Okay, there being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Maynes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have one item. This is the public health updates. Mr. Baker is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning, Your Honor, members of the court.
Good morning.
I just wanted to bring you up to speed on the West Nile virus situational update. We've had some more, data sets that arrived, and we're continuing to monitor the situation. But if you would look at the solid red line, those are the positive pools that we're receiving every week that are West Nile virus positive. And the trend, as you can see, continues to be higher. From the last time that we discussed, a couple of weeks have gone by, and we haven't really seen much of a respite in data. The percentage positive pools keep trending higher as well. And this slide really speaks for itself. It is the infection rate of mosquitoes per 1,000 that are tested. It is really shooting up at this point. Now, we've had rain, so there's a lot of discussion whether that's going to impact our data and maybe start a downtrend. That is very possible. It does interrupt breeding cycle because a lot of things get washed out and so forth. But, again, if you look at the overall trend, it is higher, and it's anybody's guess to predict what will happen next. So the data continues to look bad. If you're looking at the vector index, which is sort of a summary of all the different indicators that we look at, that's also looking to tick back up. In the last couple of weeks, it's gone back up. And as you can notice from the previous years, this sort of undulation is not uncommon. We're in August, which is typically the peak activity month. So we don't expect to, see any drastic changes. I mean, it can happen if the weather, behaves differently than we normally see. But it's anybody's guess at this point. So looking at what we have on the slides, the situation is escalating. This one is down, but it's the number of Culex mosquitoes per trap, and there are various factors that can impact that. Depending on wind, depending on the location, rain, all these other things can impact it. Here's a quick summary slide on what's going on with human cases. The red line is percentage positive mosquito pools. As you can see, it's trending higher, and we are starting to see correlation with human cases. The slide here actually shows 7, but we had a late report on a Friday, so we are up to 8 positive human cases this year, which is double than what we had this time last year. We had about 4 around 15th of August. So high numbers of mosquitoes with positive West Nile is correlating to more human cases early in the season. So with that, that's pretty much the end of the briefing, and we're here to continue the discussion that we opened with you last time. If we're going to decide to take any further aggressive action on responding to this situation, I think the time is now, as you can look at the numbers. We've had coordinated efforts with our municipalities to do ground spraying. We've worked with the public about education on source reduction, larviciding, but it seems like those efforts are insufficient at this point. So the one last option, and I know it's not a very popular option, but we need to consider aerial spraying. And, we've had some discussions with some cities. There is some interest. Obviously, cost remains a major concern. So I present that before you for consideration at this time.
Aerial spraying, give us, if we were gonna do that, what's the number of times? How do we, what's your recommendation, or what would your recommendations be?
Sure. So CDC, back in 2012, when we talked to them about aerial spraying at that time, and we've had some recent conversations as well, they usually recommend about 3 sprays consistently to have full effect. However, our team has kind of, talked to the vendor. We've had some discussions internally. We could take a little bit more prudent approach. Now, the best, approach would be to blanket the entire county. However, that is the most expensive option and probably hard to reach a consensus with all participating jurisdictions as well, because you're talking 40 plus different mindsets, different questions. But that is probably going to get you the best response in terms of getting the dampening effect that we're looking at. The other option that we're looking at is also looking at all the positive mosquito traps that have been there this season so far. They've been treated with ground spray. However, we're thinking that if we could go and instead of a quarter mile that we do with the ground spray, if we could do an aerial spray of 1 mile radius around those positive traps, that's another alternate option which would reduce the cost. But also, you need to know that that will probably reduce the effectiveness of the spray as well, because you're not covering a wide area, you're doing a targeted spray. Now, we could watch after one of those sprays and look for some data, or we could go and do 2 sprays and see if we have that effect. In the end, we may end up having to go up to 3 sprays if needed, but that's where the recommendations are, up to three sprays, and we will continue to watch how the reaction to those is.
Is there any statistics that shows what the distance that a mosquito would normally, do they have a radius that?
Correct. So the mosquito species that we're targeting is the Culex mosquito. It is known for its long flight range. Typically, though, it flies, a few hundred yards because it finds stuff to, breed or feed on. Quarter mile is not unusual for that mosquito. That's why on our ground spraying efforts, we go quarter mile around the positive traps. It is sort of a indiscriminate feeder. If it finds a human, it will bite the human. If it finds a bird, it will bite the bird. So it does tend to feed a lot on birds at night. They do tend to fly up into the tree canopy. So those are some of the challenges we have with the ground spray. That one, when we do street spraying, there's that house or the building that may block the spray from getting everywhere in the back. But it does, the particles are so fine, they sort of float in the air and they get to the back. However, they don't tend to get up all the way because we're spraying from the street. On the maximum flight range for this mosquito has been recorded at up to 2 miles, but typically...
I'm going to regret this. How did they tag that mosquito?
Typically not more than 1 mile. Most of the literature, sort of agree that 1 mile is a typical range if they have to go that far looking for
They
food.
put a little band on its foot?
So, I know.
Do you get to do that too?
I want to meet the
Vinny.
guy who tells them what sex they are.
How do our statistics compare with other counties in North Texas?
So the numbers are looking pretty similar, especially over in Dallas County. They had a very similar situation. Data does fluctuate from place to place because as you put miles between us, things separate a little. But this is, at this point, as far as I know, a real issue in North Texas. Mostly so in Dallas, Tarrant, and Denton is a little bit behind us, but they've had some issues. As you get out of that area, we haven't seen a lot of activity. There are some traps positive on the statewide reports, but not as high as we've seen.
Are Dallas and Denton counties considering aerial spraying?
I know for a fact that Dallas did announce that they were considering aerial spraying. They had a discussion with their court members. I'm not quite sure about Denton at this point.
Can you give us, go ahead.
Didn't, in 2012, or didn't they aerial
They did.
spray? We didn't.
Correct.
The results were almost identical, weren't they? From an effectiveness rate?
I'm not quite sure. I
Maybe
wasn't
one
around.
year.
I've heard those similar discussions, and part of that, what I've heard is that, decision-making took a little bit longer. It was in response to human cases versus in response to mosquito activity. So that might have already been past the,
Right,
time
it
where,
was like 3
the max
weeks.
effect would have taken
They
effect.
had a lot more people, I thought they had a lot more people that had been, that had contracted West Nile than what we did.
And they've got a lot fewer municipal jurisdictions than we do, both in Denton and in Dallas County.
Commissioner Wynn?
What's the cost point difference between a targeted spraying approach versus an all-out countywide approach? And is there any cost-sharing opportunities with our city partners?
Sure.
And
So-
what's the time frame for us to make that decision in order to yield the highest effective?
Right. So I'll answer the last part first. Ideally, we should be reaching a consensus decision soon because we don't want to see a lot of human case activity and the mosquito activity has declined. What we want to do is hit the mosquito activity and make it go down, and that's where you get best value for the money that's going to go into this.
Isn't it likely that with the rain that we're having this week, that we would want to, does the aerial spray, would it prohibit the chance for those larvae that are gonna be in the standing water that we're gonna have after this week of rain?
It is possible. Like I said, it's anybody's guess. Rain does disrupt the breeding cycle a little bit. You could see a temporary dip in the data. It may come back. It may not come back. It's hard to predict that. But that is a possibility that the rain may impact and, continuing seasonality may change things. But let me get back to a couple of questions that you answered.
But then you said soon. Is that a week, 2 weeks? What's
Soon. It's really up to you guys to decide. I mean, data really shows that we need to take action now, but I understand once you all decide, our city partners have to, respond as well. So they might, have discussions with their own city councils, and it takes a while to get everybody to get on board. But data is asking for us to act now.
Okay.
So that's why we're here. And in terms of the cost, the full blanket countywide cost, and again, these are ballpark numbers, not 100% accurate figures. You could look at about $1 million per spray. So that's the max that you're looking at. So if we do end up going for 3 sprays, you're looking at about a $3 million or a little bit over total cost. Not talking about who's going to pay or what the cost sharing modules would look like. If you go for targeted spraying, it does significantly drop to about 1/3. But the data that I was looking at was in July. Since July, we've had a lot more positive traps, so we could, look at that and add those on. So ballpark, you're looking at probably $350,000 to $400,000 per spray on the targeted spraying. Now, these are the max numbers. And then you need to consider we may not get full participation from every community, so those areas would be taken out. So the numbers start to drop from that. But you're looking at either a maximum of $3 million or a little bit more, or about $1.2 million if you go with targeted spraying. Those are the max numbers, then we work
You're
back.
saying 3 sprays is what you recommend out of, if we're gonna go at this thing?
Well, at least that's what we're asking your
Consecutive
permission for, and then if we need to scale back, then, no harm done.
Would it be 3 consecutive days?
That's what, a lot of times the CDC would say that you would want to go 3 consecutive days, but we've had some discussions that we could go either 1 spray and then watch another night and go another spray maybe, a couple days later, or we could do 2 sprays consecutively and wait for the 3rd one and see how the data responds. So that's something that we have to, discuss with our team and with the vendor and see what their recommendations are. They have a lot of experience doing this in other states as well. So it will probably be determined on sort of what the need is and how the data is looking at that point once we are looking to go airborne.
Danny, how many cities are ground spraying?
A lot of us in our community are. I don't have the exact number, but I would say majority are participating in that effort. Some do it a little bit differently. So our recommendation has been every time there's a positive mosquito trap, go at least do 1 ground spray. And if there are multiple positives on that same location, do it 3 times in a row. Now, that's where some of the cities are not always participating, but most of them are. Most of them are responding to what we're recommending. And in the unincorporated areas, our county staff, along with the precinct staff, go and do that as well.
What about the larger cities?
Yes, so some do respond and some don't. They don't always 100% follow what we're saying based on their understanding of the data. They have other resources that they sometimes check that information with, and they make that decision based on their community's need.
Is it your definitive, unequivocal recommendation that we do aerial spraying?
Sir, the data is speaking for itself, yes. This would be the time to consider that option. That's why I'm here, second time discussing this, because it is looking fairly...
Yes,
Yes,
it
sir.
is your
Yes, sir.
recommendation that we do
It is.
aerial spraying.
It is.
Okay, so GK, Benny, have we had any what communications have we had with, say, Fort Worth or Arlington or Mansfield or the major cities within Tarrant County?
I don't know about the major cities. I know that we did reach out to all cities. We've had some response. I want to say between 8 or 10 cities inquired more about the cost. They had interest in aerial spraying, but obviously everybody's concerned. It's the end of the fiscal year for most communities, so they're concerned about the cost.
I hear you saying it would be about $1.50 per person.
Well, no, $1.89 per acre of aerial spraying.
There's 2 million people in Tarrant County.
Correct.
It'll be about $1.50 per person.
Yes, sir.
If they were to go forward with that.
That's a
And the way we reached out was that we had asked Vinnie to go ahead and contact the cities through the public health channel to tell them, first of all, that we're considering aerial spraying, and then the cost sharing. And I believe we've had some responses from our cities. I don't believe we've had any from the big cities yet.
Not that I know of, but staff may have gotten a call that I haven't yet.
I can reach out to those managers directly. We were reaching out through the public health channel to them.
Didn't we have a lot of cities against cereal spraying before?
So far, we haven't really heard a lot of no's, but not everybody has responded as well, so that doesn't tell you anything. There may be people who are not in favor. I mean, that's a possibility we need to be aware of. And I understand that. That's their choice, it's their community.
I've heard from several just random citizens who are appalled at the thought of aerial spraying.
Right. There are many sides to the story. Obviously, there are people who don't believe in this effort, and there are very many, in the scientific community that are thinking that this is a good option to consider when your ground spraying efforts are not getting the desired effect. So again, that's why I bring that back to you. We can, let you consider, ponder, and
Let us do this. What we wanted to do this morning is to bring it to your attention that we are reaching that tipping point. And what we'd like to do now, we sent out some emails to our partners in the city. We've had about probably 6 or 7 responses so far. Let us reach out and make sure that we talk to all the big cities, and we'll have a definitive report for you next week.
Okay, I guess I would ask 2 things. First, I would ask of the court, there's no reason for them to do that if as a court, we are opposed to aerial spraying. I have not heard anyone voice an opposition to aerial spraying at this point in time. So I'm going to assume that from that standpoint, yes, go forward with that. But I would also engage our mayor's council with Ms. Ward and say that, that may be, whether it's through the city managers or whatever, I think we need to come back with what I hear you saying is you ready to do it now.
Yes, sir.
I think if we waited a week and let this rainy weather go by, we might be spraying at about the time all the new mosquitoes are going to be coming out. So if we were spraying next week, assuming that we have a wet week as the weather forecasters are predicting.
I don't think mayor's council.
Ms. Ward, when is your next mayor's council meeting?
It's not for October.
Can you call a special meeting? Okay.
Well, whether they call it or whether you just communicate with your city managers, whatever.
We'll reach out to them.
And we could also have an emergency service phone call and get everybody on.
And if
Let's run all those traps.
And we'll also need to,
No
we'll also
pun
need to
intended.
work with budget to find whatever revenues we need to do this. I mean, Just, I want to make sure the court realizes that we do not have a line item expenditure for this yet. Just to be aware of that.
And if we did this, I like to see that we step up extra effort on communication and education to the public.
Yes.
Because people have the tendency to be very concerned, and rightfully so.
Correct.
About the negative effect of aerial spraying on their health, their children's health, and the environment, bees, birds, and so forth.
Pets.
And pets and so forth. So there's a lot of misunderstanding. So maybe we need to step up on that to make sure that we deal with that particular.
Yes, sir. That will be our strategy to first inform and educate the public that if we're going forward, then, here's what we're looking to do, when it will be done, what are things to be concerned about, what are things not to be concerned about. Because like you said, there is a lot of misinformation out there. And that's why you hear a lot of folks very concerned about that. So we'll make sure that we beef up those efforts. We'll work with our city partners as well and make sure that they are reaching out into their own communities as their leaders and informing those members as well of the community. We'll do that.
Have you done any YouTubes yet on the spraying in the backyard?
No.
Kelly, what's the deal here? Why, no YouTubes?
We'll definitely add that to our list of.
I mean, I half joke, but I'm half serious about. I think that
take it
folks are
seriously.
looking
Yes, sir.
for responses and or for what they can do, and I think many folks could get out in their backyards and do some.
Absolutely, and I don't know if you saw or caught the newspaper article. That message was very clearly delivered that this is time for the homeowners. While we debate about the cost and the best strategy to go, they can pick up and start taking care of their own backyard, because that's an easy fix. You go to a store, buy something that you put on a hose, and you spray it, and you have good effect for 8 to 10 days. And you can repeat that because mosquito activity is high at this time. So that's a very astute observation and a very good message to get out at this time. The public needs to be doing that as well.
Other questions, concerns, information that you'd like to have, or at this point in time? We'll try to put together some statistics and have maybe something ready to go next week. And
Are you leaning toward the targeted approach or the countywide approach?
So again, I'm not the decision maker on this, but the best effect will be on a wide area spraying. But I understand if there are reservations about that. Targeted approach is a alternative approach, but you really get what you pay for. You need to understand that when you go targeted, you don't get that blanket effect. You're literally retreating those areas that were already treated with ground spray. Now that's where we've had any traps positive. So if we cover 1 mile area around that, very likely we will have the desired intended effect. But it's not the same as blanketing the entire county. If that was an
I guess
option.
the one other question that I would have, and it's probably of the DA, is if we decide we're going to blanket the county, is that a call we can make?
We'll have to look into that.
Perhaps you can declare a public health emergency.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
But that's something that we need to know the answer to that question before we decide we're going to.
Because getting 41 jurisdictions to agree in time enough to do any good with this thing is.
Well, and I agree. So I think that is a big part of the decision. So we'll be looking forward to your recommendations so that we can make our decision.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinny.
That's all we have at this time.
Then we will recess our open meeting, proceed to close to discuss items exempt under section 551, 071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. Make GK mad.
Do you have
She
an
got this thing
estimate on the cost of the
Are
e-filing?
we on?
Yeah, we're on.
Having returned from our closed session, the following announcement needs to be made.
Make it.
Members of the court, there was a question concerning the August 30th meeting. for the Commissioners Court, we are not going to have court that day.
That question came up in open session out here, though.
Yes, it did.
Right, okay,
Yes.
just clarify.
No, that was, when we talked about it earlier today, you all asked about the 30th, and I said I would report back to you after closed, and here's my report.
Thank you. So no court next week, we got public hearing.
No, we have court
We
next week.
have, court next week starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then the 30th, we do not have court, and then for the 6th, we have court starting at 10 o'clock.
Thank you for catching that. Next week, 9, following week, none, the 6th.
10 o'clock.
Tell me I need to clean up my act.
Now, that's for the baby.
We don't have anything else at this time, Your Honor.
We're adjourned.
Thank you,
What
Chief.
time is this? Texas, what time?